Sometimes the most beautiful connections happen when two souls recognize the same truth, that real art begins the moment we stop hiding who we really are. Maya had been planning this night for months. Her hands shook a little as she stood outside the Riverside Art Gallery, checking her reflection one last time in the glass doors. She wore her favorite black dress, the one that made her feel confident and professional. Tonight wasn't just any night. It was the opening of her first solo photography exhibition. For 3 years, Maya had been working as a freelance photographer, taking pictures of weddings, family portraits, and small events around the city. But her real passion was different. She loved capturing people in their most natural moments, when they forgot someone was watching, when their real personality shone through. Those were the pictures that hung on the gallery walls tonight. The theme of her exhibition was called Real People, Real Moments. Every photograph told a story about someone being completely themselves. There was Mrs. Johnson from the flower shop, laughing so hard her eyes disappeared into wrinkles. There was 8-year-old Tommy from her neighborhood, concentrating so intensely on his math homework that his tongue stuck out. There was her elderly neighbor, Mr. Chen, feeding stray cats behind his apartment building when he thought no one was looking. Maya took a deep breath and pushed open the gallery doors. The space was buzzing with activity. People held wine glasses and moved slowly from one photograph to another. Some nodded appreciatively. Others whispered comments to their friends. Maya felt her heart beating fast. These were her pictures, her vision of the world, displayed for everyone to see and judge. The gallery owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, spotted her immediately and rushed over with a warm smile. "Maya, there you are. People are loving your work. I've already had 3 inquiries about purchasing prints." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. Maybe this wasn't going to be a disaster after all. As she moved through the crowd, Maya tried to listen to people's comments without being obvious about it. Near the entrance, 2 women were discussing a photograph of a construction worker taking a lunch break, sharing his sandwich with a homeless dog. "Look at the kindness in his face," one woman said. "You can see he's a good person just from this one moment." That was exactly what Maya had hoped people would see. She believed that if you watched carefully enough, you could see people's true character in the small things they did when they thought no one was paying attention. Her camera had become a tool for finding these moments of genuine humanity. Halfway through the evening, Maya noticed him. He stood in the back corner of the gallery, completely absorbed in studying one particular photograph. While other visitors glanced at each picture for a few seconds before moving on, this man had been standing in the same spot for nearly 10 minutes. He was tall and lean, wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans. His dark hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it while thinking. The photograph that held his attention was Maya's personal favorite from the collection. It showed an elderly woman sitting on a park bench feeding pigeons. But the woman wasn't looking at the birds. She was looking up at the sky with the most beautiful expression of peace and wonder on her face. Maya had captured the moment when the woman seemed to forget about everything else in the world, except the feeling of sunshine on her face. Maya found herself moving closer, curious about what this stranger saw in the photograph that kept him there so long. She pretended to adjust some papers on a nearby table while stealing glances at him. His face was thoughtful, almost sad in a way that suggested he understood something deep about the image. He wasn't just looking at a pretty picture. He was connecting with the emotion behind it. Just as Maya was wondering if she should introduce herself, the man turned around. Their eyes met across the small space between them. For a moment that felt much longer than it actually was. They just looked at each other. Maya felt something she couldn't quite name. A recognition, maybe. Like seeing a reflection of her own thoughts in someone else's face. He had kind eyes, the sort that seemed to really see things instead of just looking at them. Maya realized this was probably the kind of person she would want to photograph. Someone who carried stories in their expression. But before either of them could say anything, Mrs. Rodriguez appeared at Maya's elbow with a group of potential collectors who wanted to meet the artist. "Maya, I'd like you to meet the Hendersons. They're very interested in your work," Mrs. Rodriguez said, gently steering Maya away from the back corner. As she was pulled into conversation with the collectors, Maya glanced back toward the mysterious man, but he had turned his attention back to the photograph. For the next hour, Maya was swept up in conversations with visitors. People asked about her technique, her inspiration, how long she'd been taking pictures. She answered their questions and smiled politely, but part of her mind kept drifting back to the man in the corner. There had been something in his face when he looked at her photograph, an understanding that went deeper than casual appreciation. When she finally had a moment to look for him again, he was gone. Maya felt an unexpected disappointment. She walked over to the photograph he'd been studying and tried to see it through his eyes. What had he found so compelling about this particular image? What story had he seen that others might have missed? The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and business cards. Several people expressed interest in commissioning work from Maya, and 3 photographs sold before the night was over. By any measure, the opening was a success. But as Maya helped Mrs. Rodriguez clean up after the last visitors had left, she couldn't shake the feeling that the most important moment of the evening had been that brief, wordless exchange with a stranger who seemed to understand her art in a way that went beyond words. Walking to her car later that night, Maya reflected on how strange it was that someone she'd never met could make such an impression. She didn't even know his name, but something about the way he'd looked at her work, and then at her, suggested that their paths might cross again. In her experience, the most meaningful connections often happened when you least expected them, in moments that seemed random but felt somehow inevitable. 3 weeks after her gallery opening, Maya was sitting at her kitchen table scrolling through emails on her laptop when an unusual message caught her attention. The subject line read "Photography Opportunity, Community Theater Project." Maya almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something made her open it instead. The email was from Linda Park, the director of Riverside Community Theater. She explained that they were putting together an experimental show about self-acceptance and finding confidence. The production was called Breaking Free, and they needed a photographer to capture both rehearsals and the final performances. The pay wasn't much, but Linda mentioned that the project was deeply meaningful and unlike anything Maya had probably worked on before. Maya read the email twice. She had photographed a few theater productions before, but they were usually traditional plays where she just took standard promotional shots. This sounded different. Linda wrote about wanting to document real transformation and moments of genuine breakthrough. Those were exactly the kinds of moments Maya loved capturing with her camera. The next morning, Maya replied to Linda's email expressing interest. Within a few hours, Linda called her directly. Her voice was warm and excited as she explained the project in more detail. The show would feature local community members, not professional actors, sharing personal stories about overcoming insecurities and learning to feel comfortable in their own skin. "We want someone who can see beyond the surface," Linda explained. "Someone who understands that the most powerful moments often happen between the scripted parts, in those quiet seconds when people forget they're performing and just become completely real." Maya felt her heart skip a little. This was exactly the kind of work she had dreamed about doing. "When would you need me to start?" she asked. "Tomorrow evening, if you're available. We're holding our first full cast meeting and read-through. It would be perfect for you to meet everyone and get a feel for what we're trying to create." The next evening, Maya arrived at the small theater with her camera bag and a nervous excitement in her stomach. The Riverside Community Theater was housed in a converted warehouse with exposed brick walls and a cozy, intimate feeling. She could hear voices and laughter coming from the main theater space. Linda met her at the entrance, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of energetic presence that made everyone around her feel more alive. "Maya, I'm so glad you could make it. Come on, let me introduce you to our amazing cast." As they walked into the theater space, Maya saw about 15 people sitting in a circle of folding chairs. They ranged in age from teenagers to seniors, and Maya could tell immediately that these weren't experienced performers. They had the slightly nervous, excited energy of people who were about to try something completely new and possibly scary. Linda clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Maya, our photographer. She's going to be documenting our journey over the next few weeks, capturing both our rehearsal process and our performances." As Maya looked around the circle of faces, her breath caught in her throat. There, sitting near the back of the group, was the man from her gallery opening. He looked just as surprised to see her as she was to see him. Their eyes met for a second time, and Maya felt that same strange recognition she'd experienced 3 weeks ago. Linda continued with introductions, and Maya learned that his name was Alex. When it was his turn to speak, he stood up with a shy smile. I'm Alex, and I guess I should mention that I'm probably the most nervous person here tonight. I've never done anything like this before, but something about this project just felt important to try. His voice was gentle and thoughtful, exactly what Maya would have imagined, based on the way she'd seen him studying her photograph. She found herself wanting to know more about what had drawn him to this theater project, what personal story he might be planning to share. After introductions, Linda explained how the show would work. Each cast member would develop a short personal monologue about a time in their life when they learned to accept themselves or found the courage to be authentic. The stories would be woven together with movement, music, and visual elements to create an evening about transformation and self-discovery. The beautiful thing about this project, Linda said, is that everyone's story is different, but they all touch on the same universal truth. We all have moments when we have to choose between hiding who we really are and taking the risk of being seen. Maya felt goosebumps rise on her arms. This was exactly the kind of human truth she tried to capture in her photography. As Linda talked more about the vision for the show, Maya found herself glancing occasionally at Alex. He was listening intently, nodding at certain points, and she could see him processing how his own story might fit into this larger tapestry of experiences. During the break, Maya was adjusting her camera settings when Alex approached her. Up close, she could see that he had small laugh lines around his eyes and a scar on his chin that suggested an interesting story behind it. I wanted to tell you, he said. I was at your gallery opening a few weeks ago. Your photographs were incredible. There was something about them that stayed with me for days afterward. Maya felt a warm flush of pride mixed with curiosity. Thank you. I noticed you spending a lot of time looking at the one with the woman feeding pigeons. What did you see in that picture? Alex was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. She looked like she had found a kind of peace that most people spend their whole lives searching for. Like she had stopped worrying about what other people thought and just started enjoying being exactly who she was. Maya realized that Alex had understood exactly what she had been trying to capture in that moment. Most people saw a nice picture of an old woman with some birds. Alex had seen the deeper story about finding contentment and authenticity. That's exactly what I was hoping people would see, Maya said. I think the most beautiful photographs happen when people forget they're being watched and just become completely themselves. Alex smiled, and Maya noticed it was the same kind of genuine, unguarded smile she tried to capture in her work. I have a feeling, he said, that working on this theater project is going to give you a lot of opportunities to photograph those kinds of moments. As the break ended and everyone returned to their chairs, Maya realized that this assignment was going to be much more interesting than she had originally thought. Not only would she be documenting an inspiring community project, but she would also get to learn more about the mysterious stranger who had understood her art in a way that few people ever had. 2 weeks of rehearsals had passed, and Maya had never experienced anything quite like documenting the Breaking Free theater project. Every evening, she watched as ordinary people from the community slowly transformed into storytellers, finding the courage to share their most personal experiences with a group of relative strangers. Tonight was opening night, and the small theater was buzzing with nervous energy. Maya arrived early to set up her equipment, positioning her cameras to capture both the performances on stage and the reactions in the audience. The intimate venue meant that everyone felt connected, like they were sharing secrets in someone's living room, rather than watching a formal theater production. Linda had transformed the simple black box theater into something magical. Soft lighting created warm pools of illumination, and simple props suggested different settings without overwhelming the personal nature of the stories being told. Maya checked her camera settings one final time as the audience began to fill the 50 folding chairs that made up the theater's seating. She spotted Alex backstage, pacing slightly and running his hands through his hair. Over the past 2 weeks, Maya had watched him work on his monologue during rehearsals, but he had always been somewhat private about the details of his story. She knew it had something to do with learning to feel comfortable with who he was, but Alex had a way of deflecting attention from himself even while preparing to be on stage. The lights dimmed, and Linda stepped onto the small raised platform that served as the stage. Welcome to Breaking Free, she said to the audience. Tonight you'll hear stories from members of our own community about moments when they chose authenticity over approval, courage over comfort. These aren't actors playing roles. These are real people sharing real experiences, and we invite you to open your hearts to their truth. The first performer was Janet, a woman in her 60s who worked at the local library. Her story was about learning to speak up for herself after years of staying quiet to avoid conflict. Maya captured the moment when Janet's voice grew stronger as she talked about the first time she had disagreed with her boss and discovered that the world didn't end when she expressed her own opinion. Next came Tony, a teenager who had struggled with feeling different from his classmates. His monologue was about the day he decided to try out for the school choir, even though some kids had made fun of his interest in music. Maya's camera caught the emotion in his voice as he described hearing his own voice blend with others for the first time, and realizing that being different could actually be a gift. Each story was unique, but Maya began to see the common thread that Linda had talked about during their first meeting. Every person had reached a moment where they had to choose between hiding their true self and taking the risk of being seen and possibly rejected. And somehow, each of them had found the strength to choose authenticity. Alex's story was scheduled third. Maya watched from her position near the side of the stage as he took a deep breath and walked into the spotlight. For a moment, he just stood there looking out at the audience, and Maya could see him gathering his courage. "My name is Alex," he began, his voice quiet but clear. "And for most of my life, I thought being sensitive was something I needed to fix about myself." Maya felt her heart tighten as Alex began to share his story. He talked about growing up feeling like he experienced emotions more intensely than other people, how he had learned to hide his reactions to movies, books, and music because he was afraid people would think he was weak. He described years of pretending to be tougher and more detached than he really was. Through her camera lens, Maya watched Alex's face transform as he spoke. The nervousness faded away, replaced by a kind of peaceful honesty that reminded her of the expression she had captured in her photograph of the woman feeding pigeons. Alex was becoming completely present, completely himself right there on stage. "The turning point came," Alex continued, "when I realized that my sensitivity wasn't a flaw to hide. It was actually my superpower. It's what lets me connect with other people's stories, understand their feelings, and create something meaningful from those connections." Maya's camera clicked softly as she captured the moment when Alex looked directly out at the audience and smiled. It wasn't a performer's smile or a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally stopped hiding and decided to let people see who he really was. "I write stories now," Alex said, "and I've learned that the things that made me feel different are exactly the things that make my writing honest. The sensitivity I tried to hide for so many years is what helps me understand the characters I create and the emotions they experience." As Alex finished his monologue, Maya realized she had been holding her breath. The theater was completely silent for a moment, and then the audience began to applaud. But it wasn't the polite clapping you might hear after a traditional performance. It was the kind of appreciation people show when someone has shared something genuinely meaningful. The rest of the evening continued with more stories, each one building on the themes of self-acceptance and authentic living. Maya documented it all, but she found herself thinking about Alex's words. She understood now why he had been so drawn to her photograph of the woman in the park. He recognized the same quality in her image that he was trying to cultivate in his own life, the peace that comes from accepting yourself completely. During the show's most powerful moment, one of the performers made a symbolic gesture. Lisa, a young woman who had struggled with body image, slowly removed the oversized jacket she had been wearing throughout her monologue. Underneath, she wore a simple, well-fitted dress that showed her natural figure. It was a metaphor for shedding the layers of insecurity and self-doubt that had been hiding her true self. The audience was completely silent as Lisa stood there, vulnerable and beautiful in her authenticity. Maya's camera captured not just Lisa's courage, but also the faces of the audience members, many of whom had tears in their eyes. This wasn't just entertainment. It was a community healing experience. As the show concluded and the performers took their bows, Maya realized that she had witnessed something extraordinary. These weren't professional actors delivering scripted lines. These were ordinary people who had found extraordinary courage to share their most personal truths with strangers, and in doing so, had created something beautiful and transformative. During the reception afterward, people lingered much longer than usual after a theater performance. Audience members approached the performers to share their own similar experiences or to thank them for their honesty. Maya moved through the crowd, capturing these moments of connection and community that had grown out of shared vulnerability. She noticed Alex standing near the back of the room, looking somewhat overwhelmed by the attention he was receiving. Several people had approached him to talk about how his story had resonated with them. Maya could see that while he was grateful for the positive response, he was also processing the emotional intensity of having shared such a personal experience with a room full of people. As the crowd began to thin out, Maya found herself standing near Alex. "That was incredible," she said simply. "Your story was beautiful and the way you told it was so honest. I could see people in the audience recognizing themselves in your experience." Alex looked at her with gratitude and a touch of exhaustion. "Thank you. I have to admit I was terrified up there, but there was something about sharing that story, about not hiding anymore, that felt like the most important thing I've ever done." Maya understood exactly what he meant. She had felt something similar the night of her gallery opening, when she had put her most personal artistic vision on display for strangers to judge. There was something both terrifying and liberating about letting people see the real you. After the final performance of Breaking Free, the cast and crew decided to celebrate at Luna's Cafe, a cozy little place downtown that stayed open late on weekends. Maya packed up her camera equipment and joined the group, carrying a folder of printed photographs she had developed from the show's 3-night run. The cafe was perfect for their celebration. Warm lighting, mismatched furniture, and the kind of relaxed atmosphere that encouraged real conversation. Maya found a seat at one of the larger tables where most of the cast had gathered. Everyone was still buzzing with the energy that comes after completing something meaningful together. Linda raised her coffee cup in a toast. To everyone who had the courage to share their story, and to Maya for capturing it all so beautifully. This project changed all of us, and now we have these amazing photographs to remember it forever. Maya opened her folder and began passing around the prints she had brought. She had spent hours in her home darkroom over the past few days, carefully developing the best shots from each performance. These weren't just standard theater photos. Each image captured a moment of genuine emotion, a performer mid-story, an audience member moved to tears, or the cast supporting each other backstage. When the photographs reached Alex, he studied them quietly for several minutes. Maya watched his face as he looked through the images, seeing his own transformation documented in black and white. There was a photo of him before his first performance, looking nervous but determined. Another showed him during his monologue, completely absorbed in sharing his truth. And a final one captured him after the show, surrounded by people who had been touched by his story. "These are incredible, Maya," Alex said, looking up at her with genuine amazement. "You captured something I didn't even know I was feeling. Look at this one." He held up the photograph of himself mid-performance. "I can see in my face the exact moment when I stopped being scared and started just being honest." Maya felt a warm glow of pride. This was exactly why she loved photography, finding those perfect moments when people forgot about everything else and just became completely themselves. "That's my favorite shot from your performance," she said. "You looked fearless up there." Alex laughed softly. "I felt anything but fearless. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. But I guess maybe that's what being brave actually is, feeling terrified and doing it anyway." As the evening continued, Maya found herself in deeper conversation with Alex than they'd ever had before. Away from the intensity of rehearsals and performances, they talked about their backgrounds, their dreams, and their thoughts on what made art meaningful. Maya learned that Alex worked as a freelance writer, mostly doing articles for local magazines, but his real passion was creative writing. "I've been working on a collection of short stories," Alex explained, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "They're all about people finding the courage to be authentic, kind of like what we just experienced with the theater project. I guess I'm fascinated by those moments when someone decides to stop hiding and start living honestly." Maya felt a spark of recognition. "That's exactly what I try to capture with my camera. Those split seconds when people's real personality shines through, when they forget to put on an act and just exist as themselves. It's like we're both chasing the same thing," Alex said, "just using different tools to find it." Their conversation was interrupted when one of the other cast members, Rita, approached their table. She was holding one of Maya's photographs, a candid shot of Rita laughing with another performer backstage. Maya, I have to ask you something, Rita said, sitting down beside them. Would you ever consider doing a portrait session with me? Not for anything professional, just, I've never seen myself the way you captured me in this photo. I look genuinely happy, genuinely me. I'd love to have more pictures like this. Before Maya could answer, 2 other cast members overheard and expressed similar interest. Soon, half the table was talking about wanting Maya to photograph them. Not traditional portraits, but the kind of authentic, natural images she had captured during the theater project. Maya felt overwhelmed by the positive response, but also excited by the possibility. She had always dreamed of doing more personal artistic work instead of just commercial photography. I'd love to do sessions with all of you, she said. But let me think about how to make it something special, something that really captures who each of you is. As the cafe began to empty and people started saying their goodbyes, Alex lingered at Maya's table. The folder of photographs sat between them, along with the comfortable silence that had developed between them over the past few weeks of working together. Can I ask you something? Alex said eventually. Would you be interested in photographing me sometime? Not for the theater project or anything official, just me. The request caught Maya off guard, though she realized it shouldn't have. There had been something building between them throughout this entire experience. A mutual understanding, a shared appreciation for finding truth in art, and something deeper that neither of them had put into words yet. What do you mean? Maya asked, though she thought she understood. Alex was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I've been thinking about what happened during the theater project, about how sharing my story changed something in me, and I keep looking at these photographs you took, seeing myself in ways I never have before. I guess I'm curious about what you would see if you photographed me without any performance, without any story to tell. Just me, being myself. Maya felt her heart skip a little. This wasn't just a professional request. Alex was asking her to see him, really see him, in the way she saw the world through her camera. It was an invitation to know him better, to explore whatever connection had been growing between them. I'd like that, Maya said simply. When were you thinking? How about next Saturday afternoon? The light in my apartment is really nice around 3 o'clock. We could just see what happens, no pressure, no expectations. Maya nodded, already imagining the possibilities. She had photographed hundreds of people over the years, but this felt different. This felt personal in a way that both excited and slightly nervous her. As they gathered their things to leave the cafe, Alex paused at the door. Thank you, Maya, for everything. This whole experience, getting to know you, seeing my story through your eyes, it's changed how I think about my writing, about taking risks, about being open to new connections. Walking to their cars under the streetlights, Maya reflected on how much had happened since that first night at her gallery opening. What had started as a chance encounter had turned into a collaboration, then a friendship, and now something that felt like it might be heading towards something even more significant. She thought about Alex's request to photograph him, about the trust implicit in that invitation. In her experience, the best portraits happened when there was genuine connection between the photographer and subject, when both people were willing to be vulnerable and authentic. As she drove home, Maya realized that whatever happened next, this theater project had already given her something precious. She had found not just new artistic inspiration, but also a person who understood her vision and shared her belief that the most beautiful moments in life happened when people had the courage to be completely real. Saturday afternoon arrived with perfect natural light streaming through the tall windows of Alex's apartment. Maya knocked on his door at exactly 3 o'clock, carrying her camera bag and feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. This wasn't like any photo session she had done before. Alex opened the door with a warm smile, and Maya immediately noticed how relaxed he seemed. Gone was the nervous energy she had seen before his theater performances. Today he just looked like himself, comfortable and genuine in his own space. Come in, he said, stepping aside to let her into his apartment. I made some coffee if you want some, and I cleared out the living room area so we'd have space to work. Maya looked around, taking in Alex's home for the first time. It was exactly what she would have expected. Cozy and lived in, with bookshelves covering most of one wall, a comfortable reading chair by the window, and small personal touches that revealed his personality. She could see his laptop on a small desk, surrounded by notebooks and loose papers covered with handwriting. This is perfect, Maya said, setting down her camera bag. "The light coming through these windows is beautiful, and I love how your space feels so authentically you." They spent a few minutes talking casually while Maya set up her equipment. Unlike formal portrait sessions where she had to direct poses and create artificial scenarios, this felt more like hanging out with a friend who happened to be a photographer. Alex moved naturally around his apartment, and Maya found herself taking candid shots of him making coffee, adjusting a book on the shelf, or just standing by the window looking thoughtful. "You know," Alex said, settling into his reading chair with a cup of coffee, "I've been thinking about what you said at the cafe last week, about capturing people when they forget they're being watched. I'm curious what that looks like for me." Maya adjusted her camera settings to work with the soft afternoon light. "The best portraits happen when people stop trying to look good and just start being themselves. Tell me about something you're excited about right now." Alex's face lit up as he began talking about the short story collection he was working on. Maya's camera clicked quietly as she captured his animated expressions, the way his hands moved when he explained a plot point, and the genuine enthusiasm in his eyes when he discussed his writing. "I've been thinking about turning some of these stories into a longer project," Alex continued, getting more comfortable as the conversation went on. "Maybe a novel about people in a small community who are all dealing with moments of personal transformation. Kind of like what we experienced with the theater project, but fictional." Maya lowered her camera for a moment. "That sounds incredible. You should definitely do it. Your monologue in the show was so powerful because it came from such an honest place. I think your writing would have that same authenticity." As they talked, Maya continued taking photographs, but the session began to feel less like work and more like documentation of a natural conversation between friends. She captured Alex laughing at his own joke, concentrating while he tried to explain a complex story idea, and looking peaceful during the quiet moments between topics. "Can I ask you something?" Alex said after a while. "What made you become a photographer? I mean, what drew you to trying to capture these authentic moments in people?" Maya set her camera down on the coffee table and curled up in the chair across from him. "I think I've always been fascinated by the difference between who people pretend to be and who they really are. Most of the time, we're all performing some version of ourselves that we think other people want to see. But every once in a while, usually when someone thinks no one is watching, their real personality comes through. Those moments are so beautiful and honest, and I wanted to find a way to preserve them." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "It's like you're collecting evidence that authentic people still exist in a world where everyone is trying to be someone else." "Exactly," Maya said, feeling understood in a way that made her heart warm. "And working on the theater project with you and everyone else reminded me why I love this work so much. When people have the courage to be vulnerable and real, it creates these amazing moments of human connection." As the afternoon progressed, their conversation drifted to more personal topics. Alex talked about his family, his struggles with self-doubt as a writer, and his hope to eventually publish work that would matter to people. Maya shared her dreams of having another gallery exhibition, her challenges with building a photography business, and her belief that art could help people feel less alone in the world. During a natural pause in their conversation, Alex looked directly at Maya with an expression of quiet gratitude. "You know, this whole experience, the theater project, getting to know you, having these conversations, it's changed something in me. I feel more confident about being honest in my writing, about sharing personal stories, about taking creative risks." Maya picked up her camera again, drawn to the sincerity in his expression. As she looked at him through the viewfinder, she realized that something had shifted for her too. The nervous anticipation she had felt earlier had been replaced by a deep sense of comfort and connection. "I want to try something," Maya said, adjusting her focus. "Just be yourself, exactly as you are right now. Don't think about the camera, don't try to look any particular way. Just exist in this moment." Alex relaxed completely, letting his guard down in a way that Maya had never seen before. His expression became peaceful and open, with a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. Maya's camera captured the moment, not a posed portrait, but a true reflection of who Alex was when he felt completely comfortable and accepted. Looking at the image on her camera's display screen, Maya felt a rush of artistic satisfaction mixed with something deeper. She had captured exactly what she had been hoping for, a photograph that showed Alex's authentic self, unguarded and beautiful in its honesty. "Can I see?" Alex asked, and Maya showed him the camera's screen. He was quiet for a long moment, studying the image. "Wow," he said finally. I look like myself, not like I'm trying to be anyone else or hide anything, just me." "That's exactly what I was hoping for," Maya said. "You look like someone who has learned to be comfortable with who he really is." As the afternoon light began to fade, they realized they had been talking and taking photographs for over 3 hours. The session had turned into something much more meaningful than either of them had expected, not just a photo shoot, but a deepening of their friendship and artistic collaboration. "Maya," Alex said as they were packing up her equipment, "I have an idea. What if we combined our work somehow? Your photographs and my writing? I've been thinking about creating a project about authentic human connection, and working with you today made me realize we're both trying to capture the same thing." Maya felt a spark of excitement. "What did you have in mind? What if we created a book together? Your photographs paired with my stories, all focused on moments when people choose to be real instead of perfect. We could document real people in our community, capture their stories both visually and in words." The idea felt perfect to Maya, like a natural extension of everything they had discovered about each other and their shared artistic vision. "I love that idea. We could start with some of the people from the theater project, and then find others who have interesting stories about authenticity and self-acceptance." As Maya prepared to leave, Alex walked her to the door. The comfortable silence between them felt charged with possibility, artistic collaboration, deeper friendship, and perhaps something more that neither of them was quite ready to name yet. "Thank you for this afternoon," Alex said, "for seeing me the way you do, for helping me understand something new about myself." "Thank you for trusting me," Maya replied, "for letting me into your space and your thoughts. I think we're going to create something really special together." Walking to her car, Maya felt energized by the possibilities ahead. She had started the day planning to take some portraits, but she was ending it with a creative partnership that felt like it could change both of their artistic paths. More importantly, she had deepened her connection with someone who understood her vision and shared her belief that authentic human moments were worth capturing and celebrating.